Hello there, welcome to In My Opinion for Sonic Frontiers. We start off with Eggman up to no good trying to steal tech secrets of the ancients on Starfall Islands, which ends up sucking him into cyberspace. Then cut to Sonic and friends a la Amy and Tails heading towards Starfall Islands as well, after noticing the islands have drawn the Chaos Emeralds, and they want to figure out why. Though something happens that ends up sucking them into cyberspace with Sonic being the only one able to escape. Sonic, now free, must try to save Amy, Tails, and even Knuckles, who's been caught up in this as well, and find out the secret behind the islands and the emeralds, all while a mysterious girl named Sage is trying to stop him at all costs. The main story itself is okay, and finding out the past of the ancients and the connection they have with the emeralds was kind of interesting. Though I felt the stars of the show were the characters themselves. I really like how Sonic, Amy, Tails, Knuckles, and Eggman were written, and their interactions with one another. I feel like they had a bit more to them, and how they talk is kinda different, but that doesn't mean they lack their personality. For example, Sonic is still pretty positive and can be cocky, but still shows his caring side. Knuckles, who has kind of turned into a goof in past games, has regained some brain cells, but is still his tough self, and him and Sonic bond like bros. Even the new character Sage gets some nice development and dialogue with some of the cast, and is a great addition. I've heard some complaints that this game has way too many references, but in my opinion it never felt like I was bombarded with them. While some are brought up between characters during cutscenes, it never took me out of it. Also, there are some that are references to IDW Sonic comic characters, but these tend to happen as you're exploring. And it's not like you're losing something and you don't know who the hell Tangle the Lemur is. This Sonic falls into the 3D platformer action adventure section. It's kind of a semi-open world, or as the developers say, open zones, which there are 4 of, and yeah, it shows you can teleport to 5 of them, but one of them is more like a transition to the real final one. In these open zones, you're allowed to run freely for the most part, with only very few sections cut off because you have to make some progress first. While in the zone, you'll be collecting multiple things such as keys, portal gears, chaos emeralds, memory tokens, and other stuff. I found controlling Sonic actually kinda weird at first, as I don't remember a recent Sonic game giving you so much freedom with your space and movement. Though after a few minutes you should have it down, and it's a real thrill of running fast as hell, especially when you're using your boost. And when you collect the maximum amount of rings, you trigger your power boost that has you even going faster. Though if you get smacked, you will lose this and have to collect some rings again, which are usually laying around, or you can trace a circle which will spawn some rings. Losing all your rings will cause you to die, though it's more of a tiny break than a major setback, as the game just starts you where you left off. Which is a good thing, since you'll be so into speeding around that you might end up going off a cliff. I would suggest you pick high speed mode when the game asks you at the start, because choosing action mode will make Sonic move much slower, which is no good. As you may have noticed, there are tons of rails, springs, balloons, and such that you can interact with, and it's fun as hell just casually running around only to find a sweet grind spot that leads to a spring, which thrusts you around to another spring or rails, and so forth. It really gives you a good sense of speed and makes you feel pretty damn cool connecting to all this stuff to get some goodies. There are times where the screen will lock you in a 2D camera angle, and while I've heard some hated this and find it jarring, it really never bugged me after the first time it happened, and you can just jump away and it will switch right back to the 3D camera angle. This time around, Sonic also does more than run into or bounce on enemies to kill them, and he doesn't even have to turn into a werehog for it. Sonic can now start up a little combo chain that has you kicking and punching by just mashing your attack button. There's also a meter you can fill up that once full activates Phantom Rush, which makes Sonic go into super fast combo mode, giving you a nice visual flare of multiple Sonics smashing the enemy. Sonic even has a little parry that lets you stun the enemy for an easy attack. The game lets you know when an attack is coming by sound and this little line showing where the attack is coming from, and for the most part it works, though there are certain moments where I can feel it can be a little hard to catch the line, but I found myself catching it more than missing. You also gain access to a skill tree with 14 skills to unlock, though 3 of them are only unlocked as you make progress in each zone. The rest you unlock from skill points, which you get from either killing enemies or finding some just laying around. You can even unlock a skill that has you doing cool trick poses while bursting through the air to gain a little extra skill points. I do like that you can connect all these skills for a lengthy and powerful combo. I just kinda wish the enemies didn't die so easily, so I would be able to goof around with it some more. I mean, grunts only start getting sturdier once you reach the final zone, and everything else before that kinda dies in like 2 or 3 hits. Though even with that, I found the combat to be fun, and I hope we get even more skills whenever the next game comes, and don't go back to just bouncing into things to death. Speaking of combat, you'll be fighting Guardians, which are essentially mini-bosses that are spread across the map. You will always have a nice zoom-in trigger scene to let you know that the boss has noticed you and you can fight him. You're also allowed to leave if you don't feel like fighting them, and once the music stops is when you're in the clear. These Guardians are actually pretty fun and do feel different from one another, and they don't blow their load with them in the first zone, as the other zones add at least 2 or more new Guardians to take down. There's one where you gotta run up its arm to deal damage, or you may have another that spins you into the sky in which you must dodge attacks and then time yours just right. There is maybe one or two that are similar in look with just an extra gimmick, but most of the time it's new stuff. Though watch out for the Squid Guardian, as it's always flying around some zones and could trigger a fight by accident, so much so that it has become a meme at this point. Killing these Guardians will drop a portal gear which is needed to get into the cyberspace portals. Cyberspace itself is your more traditional Sonic gameplay, which is actually going from point A to B with some levels having different paths here and there. As you get into your end goal, you'll be bouncing off enemies, collecting regular and red rings, going through loop-de-loops, and boosting everywhere, either in 3D or 2D. While these are short levels lasting around to 1, maybe 3 minutes max, they are still really enjoyable to go through, and controlling Sonic was not too difficult. The only problems I had sometimes was kinda overshooting my jumps and trying to collect the red ring by jumping on it, but not being able to perfectly tell if I was hovering in the right spot. Each of these levels also have challenges, which are usually get X amount of rings, get all red rings, beat the level, and finally beat it in a certain time. Each challenge doesn't have to be done in one shot, which I really like since it's less stressful and loading up to try again is extremely fast, so it kept me wanting to try to get everything if I miss anything. Also, if you know you screwed up at the start, the retry option loads you in really fast as well. For each challenge completed, you get a key, which a certain amount is needed to get the Chaos Emeralds. There's another issue I have with the cyberspace levels, and that's mainly with the 2D ones. These just make Sonic feel ridiculously slow compared to not only the other sections in this game, but any 2D Sonic level in previous games. I don't know what happened here, and I hope they either improve this with some patch, or if they keep this kind of gameplay for the next game, they speed it up a bit. Even with some of the issues I brought up, I still was always looking forward to the next cyberspace portal. As you're exploring the open zones, you'll bump into big red question marks. These are little mini game challenges that has you either hitting balls in holes, side dashing, getting to one spot in a certain time, and more. Completing these will open your zone map, revealing more of it. And if you complete every single one of these, your whole map gets fully revealed, and you can actually teleport between any cyberspace portals you have opened, which is actually helpful since even though you're super fast, sometimes you just want to get to a spot even faster. I really like this map screen as it lets you know where everything is with its icons, just as long as you reveal some of it, and it even shows where more of those mini game challenges are, so in turn it helps you reveal more of it faster. You may have also noticed faces on the map in the shape of either Amy, Knuckles, Tails, or Sage. This is why you've been collecting those memory tokens, which in Amy's case are hearts. Gathering these allows you to interact with them, getting their thoughts on what's going on and how they feel in general, which I mentioned before is one of the highlights of the game because of how they are written. There are also color versions of these, which lead to their own little special side mission stories, like Amy trying to reunite one of the Cocos, the cute little creatures she's been running into, with someone they love. These also help expand on the lore of the Cocos and the past of the Starfall Islands. During these you play another minigame like herding a group of Cocos or collecting some materials. These aren't amazing or bad, they're just okay. And your big reward for this is another Chaos Emerald. Speaking of the Cocos, there are two special types on the map, which are the Hermit and Elder. The Hermit allows you to upgrade your strength and defense by giving it those red and blue seeds that you find from completing red question mark challenges, killing enemies, or just happen to be lying around. The Elder allows you to increase your overall speed and ring amount by just collecting Cocos that are just randomly around. There is another portal besides cyberspace, and that's your fishing portal. Yep, your old friend Biggs the Cat will teach you how to fish. It doesn't cost you anything to unlock the portal, but to cast a line it will cost you some purple fish coins that you come across while you're exploring the open zone. Another way to get purple coins is by triggering a starfall, which happens randomly at night, and then just collect the sparkles on the ground, which activates a slot machine, giving you a chance to get a crap ton of purple coins. This may sound annoying, but if your playthrough is anything like mine, you'll trigger this at least once every zone, maybe twice, which is more than enough. The fishing minigame is rather easy as you just wait for a snag, then press a button to trigger the red ring. Then you gotta press your button at the right time and that's it. Bigger catches make the ring amount and speed increase. You'll be pulling out fishes, toads, and references from Sonic games. You can also pull out two maps that will let you teleport to any Hermit or Elder Coco on the map. What you get for each catch is a certain amount of treasure tokens, which you can spend in the store here, or use as some tickets you can catch while fishing. One of the most important things is Eggman's memos, which gives you audio logs on what he was doing and thinking while stuck in cyberspace, and I found these worth a listen. The other stuff is things you can already find like portal gear, seeds, keys, and so on. I like this since it does give you more options to complete in the game. So let's say for some reason you really hate the cyberspace levels. You could just do a very few and not have to worry about doing all the challenges in them for more keys, and instead just buy them with treasure tokens. It also helps if you don't want to keep searching for Cocos and seeds to level up, as you could just buy big bulk here. And it's not like there's a limit of how many fishes you can get. Not only that, but when you go to a new open zone, the amount of treasure tokens you're rewarded with increases. So much so, by the time I was at the third open zone, I was just about maxed out. At the very end of the 4 open zones, you will fight a Titan, which you'll usually get a sneak preview earlier in the zones with a cool little cutscene and gameplay moment. The Titans tend to have the final Chaos Emerald in each zone, as you lose them after every Titan fight. So you have to find out how to reach the Emerald, which can be pretty fun but sometimes a bit rough. Once that happens, you turn Supersonic, which will slowly drain your rings, and getting hit adds to that decrease. And once it hits 0, you fail. These fights feel really epic, especially with the vocal track hyping you up, which there are different ones for each Titan, which I wasn't expecting, as I thought they would just have a set Titan theme, so this was a nice surprise. The fights are usually just you trying to get close to the Titan to smack it around, while dodging its attacks and pulling off some quick time events. Parrying comes into play here too, but it can be rough, and I don't know if it was me or just the size of the Titan that was throwing me off. I will say the second Titan fight needed to relax with how much shit it was throwing at the screen, as I tended to get smacked because I couldn't see it coming. Though even with these rough spots, the Titan encounters were still a really fun experience. One kind of random note is that there is one minigame during the third zone that needs to be done to get to the Titan, which is a pinball game. Yeah, I get it, you know, Sonic Pinball, remember that? But here's the thing, it's a bit much, as you need an assload of points to get through, and once you get said points, a portal opens, and I got close to it multiple times and nothing was happening. So I thought maybe I had to let my last ball run out, but nope, instead I had to hope Sonic bounced off just right to get out. So I had to redo the entire thing again. So let's say even if you get the max points, if you by chance lose your last ball, you have to do it all over again. Fuck that noise. After you beat the game, you unlock an arcade mode, which is just the cyberspace levels you've played already. This is just an easier and quicker way to get to them if all you want to do is play a cyberspace level. First off, this is the PS5 version I'm playing, and on performance mode 60 FPS. I suggest you do the same since the 4K 30 FPS just looks off as everything seems a bit more blurry. You're allowed to switch on the fly if you want to see for yourself. While in gameplay, everything has a nice and bright colorful look to it, and you get nice visual feedback when you're zooming by, especially when you're in power boost mode, making you truly feel like the blue blur. The first 3 open zones have a unique feel and look to them, be it some nice forest to the desert. And you never feel like you're just revisiting the same area, well, most of the time. As sadly, the final zone feels like leftovers from the first one, with just a tiny bit more rain. I mean, they could have at least made it a snow zone or something like that. Also, there is some noticeable pop-in as you're exploring, and while I wasn't bugged too much by this since I was so into what I was doing, I can see how it could really annoy others. The game has a day-night cycle that does transition nicely, though I did notice that time only goes by if you're moving, as I've stood in one spot and night never came. I like the look of the enemies as they have some unique designs and you usually see 1 or 2 new additions in each zone, and same goes for the Guardians. Sonic and the rest of the cast models stick to the usual modern Sonic design, which is never a bad thing since I've always liked the 3D era look. The only times the models themselves can come off weird is during cutscenes when they are talking, since they do look a little stiff, but it never took me out of the game. The voice acting in the game is great and everyone captures their character. I will say Sonic takes a little bit to get used to since he sounds a bit deeper than usual. There is a Japanese audio option if you would prefer that. The music is fucking fantastic. At first I was hesitant about the open zone's more calm tracks, but it works as you're just exploring. Then once you get into the cyberspace levels, it kicks it up a notch as it should. As I mentioned before, the Titans have some great tracks that help enhance the battle, and they each have a nice varied design. During my 60 FPS playtime, I never felt the frame drop, and I don't really remember running into any major bugs.
I wanted to argue, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything back. I worry he's right and that I haven't changed at all.
Whatever. Some spooky cyber copy hasn't seen you in action. I've seen it firsthand. You've definitely grown, and I know you'll keep on working hard.
Yeah, the game does have some rough patches like the pop-in and the slow 2D levels, but things such as the gameplay, writing, music, and more helps it stand up. In the end, what you got is a great but flawed game. It took me about 20 plus hours to complete the whole game, as in collecting everything and even S-ranking all the cyberspace portals, which I think is a pretty good length. Replay value is collecting anything that you miss, and the game lets you teleport to any of the zones to do that, even after beating the game. There was an announcement of more content coming down the line, such as making Amy, Tails, and Knuckles playable, all completely free, so you got that to look forward to as well. If you're a Sonic fan, then I highly recommend this game, and even if you're someone who's been iffy with some of Sonic's past 3D games, I say you should still give this one a chance, as this is a new adventure worth joining. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamers' sake, keep gaming.